The crowd was roaring Ozzy's name, but in the middle of it all, Sharon Osbourne's knees seemed to give way.
Sharon could not hold back her grief.
Her children gripped her arms as she clutched a small bouquet, her face hidden behind trembling hands. It wasn't the cameras or the noise that broke her. It was the sight of thousands of fans, shoulder to shoulder, lining the same streets Ozzy once walked as a boy.
Thousands of fans just wanting to be there to pay their respects to Ozzy Osbourne.
This wasn't just a farewell. It was the moment the world saw the weight of a lifetime of love and loss crash down on her all at once. And it was only the beginning of an unforgettable day.
Him is just unthinkable.
Sharon Osbourne appearing overwhelmed by grief, held up by her children.
It wasn't the roar of guitars or the blare of the brass band that froze the crowd. It was Sharon's sudden, visible collapse into grief right there in the open.
Grief, held up by her children, Kelly, Jack, Amy, and stepson Louie, as the family mourns their husband and...
If you've ever stood at a graveside and felt the weight of every shared memory hit you at once, you understand what happened in that instant. This was more than a rock legend's farewell. It was a family's raw, unfiltered goodbye. Her knees bent slightly, bouquet trembling in her hands. Jack gripped her left arm, Kelly her right. Amy stood just behind, eyes fixed on her mother, ready to catch her if she faltered.
Physically supported by their kids, Jack, Kelly, and Amy, Ozzy's...
This wasn't a private moment shielded by walls. It was on Black Sabbath Bridge, in the middle of thousands chanting Ozzy's name.
Laid flowers at Black Sabbath Bridge. They were...
Every camera lens caught the same thing. The exact second, a widow's strength gave way. Local papers counted over 15,000 fans shoulder to shoulder that day, many holding handwritten notes or homemade banners. The chants of Ozzy, Ozzy, Ozzy swelled loud enough to drown the hum of nearby traffic, and yet, even with the tears streaking her cheeks, Sharon managed to lift her hand in a peace sign, a small gesture of gratitude that told the crowd she saw them and she felt them. But this was only the first signal of what that day would hold. A farewell, unlike anything Birmingham had ever witnessed. You'd expect silence at a funeral. In Birmingham that day, it was the opposite, a wall of sound that wrapped around the entire procession.
A visibly moved Sharon Osbourne, along with her children, made a brief appearance, seeing all the love that surrounded them.
If you grew up with a worn-out Black Sabbath cassette in your first car or stood in a packed venue just to hear Ozzy scream your city's name, this was your gathering. These were your people. They weren't just mourning, they were celebrating what Ozzy built, a bridge between a gritty factory town and the global stage.
What he wanted to happen when he went, and he was very adamant that when his funeral happened, it would be a celebration.
Brass instruments blared Sabbath riffs down the streets he'd walked as a kid.
And fulfilling one of Ozzy's final wishes, a local brass band.
The air smelled of flowers, beer, and rain. A group of old friends, some in faded tour shirts from 1978, stood shoulder to shoulder with teenagers who discovered him on streaming playlists last month. City officials said the crowd stretched over half a mile, weaving through Birmingham's core, every inch lined with people waving, clapping, or lifting hand signs toward the slow-moving hearse. It was exactly the mix Ozzy had asked for. A little chaos, a lot of music, and no one standing still. And as the casket rolled forward, the tribute shifted from public noise to something deeply personal for the family. Most funerals follow a script. This one tore it up. If you believe a final send-off should reflect the life lived, Ozzy's was exactly that. Loud, defiant, and unforgettable. The casket rolled slowly through Birmingham in a glass-sided hearse, flanked by purple flowers spelling O-Z-Z-Y in bold letters.
Casket adorned in purple flowers.
It wasn't just for display. It was a statement. The man was larger than life, and even in death, he wasn't going quietly. The route past his childhood home, a modest brick building that once held a boy dreaming of music bigger than his streets.
Way through his hometown.
Neighbors leaned out of upstairs windows, some crying, some smiling, as if they'd been waiting decades to see him come back one last time. Reporters noted that the procession paused briefly in front of the house, the hearse idling just long enough for a quiet moment before moving on.
Four guys looking to escape a life of factory work.
For those few seconds, the street was silent. Even the brass band stopped playing. From there, the path wound toward a place heavy with meaning for Sharon and the children. A makeshift memorial where fans had been leaving tributes for days. Amid the sea of cameras and noise, Sharon's quiet gestures spoke the loudest. If you've ever tried to hold yourself together in public while your heart was breaking, you know the discipline it takes to choose your moments. Sharon's were deliberate, and they told a story without a single word. At the makeshift memorial, she stepped forward with her children beside her.
Minutes at the makeshift memorial memorial where fans have left notes and flowers.
In her hands, a small bundle of pink blooms wrapped in black paper. Understated, personal, nothing like the elaborate arrangements around it. She laid them down gently, her fingertips resting on the petals for a beat longer than expected.
Sharon and the family leaving their own.
She bowed her head, then raised it to meet the eyes of fans pressed against barricades.
Then bowed her head as she and her family.
Some reached out hands. A few whispered thank yous. Sharon's reply wasn't verbal. She lifted her hand in a soft peace sign, the same one Ozzy had flashed at audiences for decades.
Family raised their arms, giving the peace sign.
Several fan shot clips show her eyes welling as she stepped back, Kelly slipping an arm around her waist. In each clip, the crowd goes from chanting to a hush, almost as if they knew they were witnessing something private and didn't want to break it. From there, the family would follow the procession into its most solemn chapter. One no stage, no microphones, and no reporters could fully capture. The music faded, the chant slowed, and the family stepped into a moment no crowd could soften. If you've ever had to say a last goodbye knowing it would never be repeated, you understand the stillness that came over them. This was the end of the public farewell, and the start of the goodbye that belonged only to them. Sharon stood with her children at the gates of the private cemetery.
Honoring someone they all
Kelly held her close. Jack kept a steadying hand on her shoulder. The glass-sided hearse, now free from the press of the crowd, rolled quietly inside.
loved. So, just a lot.
No music, no noise, just the soft crunch of tires over gravel. A few fans had managed to follow at a respectful distance, watching from behind iron railings as the family paused together. Kelly's earlier tribute, the lyrics to Ozzy's song Changes, felt heavier here. I've lost the best friend that I ever had.
Sharing the lyrics to his song Changes.
I feel unhappy. I feel so sad. I've lost the best friend.
Local reporters confirmed the burial was attended by fewer than 50 people, mostly close family and lifelong friends. Phones were put away. The only cameras belonged to the official family photographer. When the gates closed, the city's role in the day was over. But the story of Ozzy's life, and Sharon's role in it, still had one more chapter to reveal before the day ended. To understand why this funeral carried such force, you have to rewind decades to a boy in Birmingham who thought music might be his only way out. If you've ever fought your way from nothing and built something the world couldn't ignore, you know why this day felt less like an ending and more like a victory lap. Ozzy Osbourne grew up in a working-class family, one of 6 children crammed into a small house. Money was tight, jobs were hard, but music, sparked by hearing the Beatles, lit a fuse that never went out.
From his humble roots.
If it wasn't for the Beatles turning me on to music in a big way, I don't know what.
By the late 60s, he joined with Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward to form Black Sabbath. Together, they built a sound that was heavy, dark, and impossible to copy.
George Pinocchio now joining us with the very latest. George.
All right, thank you.
Within years, the boy from the factory streets had become the Prince of Darkness, selling millions of records and playing to arenas worldwide. Even in his later years, Ozzy's shows drew tens of thousands. His final public performance, just days before his passing, packed 40,000 fans into an open-air venue, proof that his pull never faded.
Only days before his death,
And through it all, Sharon was there, as his manager, his partner, his anchor, which is why the most unexpected turn of the week felt so surreal. A moment of joy in the middle of heartbreak. Just days before the world learned Ozzy was gone, a scene played out backstage that no one expected at a final show. If you've ever felt life throw you joy and heartbreak in the same breath, you'll recognize the bittersweet tone of what happened behind those curtains. Ozzy had just finished sound check for what would become his last performance. The mood backstage was warm, casual, family and close friends filling the space, the hum of instruments still in the air. In the middle of it, Sid Wilson, the Slipknot rocker and Kelly Osbourne's partner, quietly stepped forward and asked her to marry him.
Stage.
You know I love you more than anything in the world.
You're not married, boy.
Ozzy cracking that joke as Kelly's boyfriend and baby daddy, Slipknot rocker Sid Wilson, popped.
The proposal was met with cheers, laughter, and even a little teasing from Ozzy himself. "You know I love you more than anything," he joked, before adding with a grin, "but you're not marrying me."
Ozzy cracking that joke as Kelly's boyfriend and baby daddy.
It was a moment that cracked through the heaviness, even if no one realized how little time they had left. Kelly's engagement became public only after Ozzy's death, when she shared a photo of her ring alongside lyrics from Chanted changes. Fans quickly noticed the bittersweet timing, joy captured just before loss. And as that ring caught the light in those photos, it became another thread in the fabric of the week, a reminder that even in final chapters, life keeps writing new lines. When the music stops, what's left isn't the noise, it's the echo. If you've ever wanted to leave something behind that outlives you, you'll understand why Ozzy's send-off wasn't just a goodbye. It was proof that his voice and his spirit still have work to do in the world. From the streets of Birmingham to stadiums across the globe, Ozzy Osbourne's songs became a soundtrack for rebellion, resilience, and refusing to fade quietly. Fans who never met him still speak of him as if he was a friend. Musicians who grew up idolizing him credit his riffs and attitude for shaping entire careers. The packed funeral procession, the flowers spelling out his name, the chants that shook the air, they were all chapters in a larger truth. Ozzy didn't just play music, he created belonging, and that belonging pulled people together one last time in the city where it all began. Even now, sales of Black Sabbath albums have spiked worldwide since his passing, and streaming platforms report millions revisiting his catalog, a digital wave of remembrance that keeps his art alive. And for Sharon, for his children, for every fan who ever raised a fist to one of his songs, the final image isn't the coffin or the crowd. It's the sense that Ozzy's story didn't end in Birmingham, it just changed venues. Not every goodbye is a silence. Some end in a roar that lingers. For anyone who ever sang along, stood in the rain for a ticket, or felt a riff run through their bones, this moment is yours as much as it is his family's. Ozzy's life was loud, defiant, and impossible to ignore. His farewell carried the same energy. Streets overflowing with people, strangers hugging, old band tees worn like armor. It wasn't just about grief, it was about belonging to something bigger. That's why this story doesn't close here. Every time his songs hit a speaker, every time a kid picks up a guitar because they heard Paranoid at the right moment, a piece of him shows up again. The Osbourne family has said they want his legacy to be one of connection, of people meeting, sharing, and celebrating because of his music. In that way, the procession in Birmingham wasn't an ending, it was a handoff. And as you click away from this video, remember, the best way to keep his voice alive isn't to talk about it, it's to make some noise of your own.